Her tear-streaked blue cheeks turned purple as the ravenous beast tore her arm from its socket. The loyal dog's teeth ripped into alien flesh as rivulets of blood streamed down its powerful muzzle. Scott couldn't believe his eyes. The dog launched itself at Commander Rigel fearlessly, even as dozens of plasma rifles took aim. It was pure chaos. Just minutes earlier, Scott had crashed on this godforsaken alien planet, Ocampa Prime. Ocampan warriors captured him immediately, rough hands stripping away his weapons and gear. Their leader, Commander Rigel, regarded him with suspicion and dread, marching him through eerie bioluminescent forests to their capital. But now an Earth dog, of all things, had the ferocious alien commander on the ground shrieking. Where had the canine even come from? Had some human settlers secretly brought dogs to Ocampa Prime? If so, Scott needed to find them immediately. He had critical intel about an impending invasion that would slaughter every human on this remote world. The Zorgon battle fleet was mere days away, hungry to feast on human settlers and plunder the planet's rare resources. Without his weapons and equipment, Scott was powerless to get word out. His ship lay in ruins. He was stranded on an alien planet, surrounded by hostile natives, facing certain annihilation. But this incredible dog attacking the aliens gave him a chance, however slim. Scott knew he had to seize this moment of chaos and confusion to escape, to find other humans, any humans, to somehow get a warning out before the Zorgon fleet arrived to butcher them all. Summoning his courage, Scott lunged for a dropped plasma rifle as the dog ravaged Rigel's arm. The howling beast's attack in the forest had shaken Commander Rigel to her core. As they entered the Ocampan capital, she kept glancing over her shoulder, as if expecting the creature to leap out at any moment. Her grip on Scott's arm tightened as she marched him through the fortress gates and down into the depths of the city's central stronghold. Scott found himself thrown unceremoniously into a small, dimly lit cell. The air was damp and musty, and the only light came from a flickering bioluminescent panel on the ceiling. Rigel stood outside the cell, her eyes narrowed as she studied him intently. "That creature in the forest," she said, her voice tight with fear and suspicion. "Did you bring it with you? Is it some kind of weapon from your world?" Scott saw an opportunity to gather more information. He schooled his features into a look of confusion and shook his head. "I have no idea what that thing was. I've never seen anything like it before." Rigel's gaze bored into him, searching for any hint of deception. After a long moment, she seemed to deflate slightly, her shoulders sagging. "We've been dealing with these attacks for nearly a year now," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Ever since that strange meteor crashed in the forest, that thing, it's not from our world. It's killed dozens of our people, and we've never even come close to stopping it." She shuddered, wrapping her arms around herself. "We've tried everything. Hunting parties, traps, even sacrifices to the gods. But nothing works. It's like a ghost, appearing out of nowhere and vanishing just as quickly. And now it's followed us here, to the very heart of our civilization." Rigel turned to leave, her hand on the cell door. "I must report to my superiors. We'll decide what to do with you later." With that, she was gone, leaving Scott alone with his thoughts. He paced the small cell, his mind racing. The dog's howl in the forest, the Ocampan's mystery predator. There had to be a connection. But what could it be? And more importantly, how could he use this information to escape and warn the other humans about the impending Zorgon invasion? Suddenly an ear-splitting alarm blared throughout the fortress. Scott heard shouts and the sound of running feet echoing through the halls. Then came the unmistakable whine of plasma rifles firing, followed by blood-curdling screams. The beast had breached the city walls. It was inside the fortress, rampaging through the streets and cutting down anyone in its path. In the chaos, it seemed the Ocampans had forgotten about their prisoner. Scott's cell door hung open, unlocked and unguarded. He hesitated, torn between the urge to flee and the knowledge that he might be the only one who could stop this creature. The sounds of carnage grew louder, closer. Scott knew he had to make a decision, and fast. Scott hesitated for only a moment, his mind racing as he weighed his options. The sounds of death and destruction echoed through the halls, a grim reminder of the stakes at hand. He knew he couldn't abandon the Ocampans to their fate, not when he might be the only one who could stop this creature. The Explorer's Code demanded that he protect the innocent, no matter the cost. Steeling himself, Scott stepped out of the cell and into the chaos. The fortress was in shambles, with rubble and debris littering the corridors. The bodies of fallen guards lay strewn about, their lifeless eyes staring up at the flickering lights. Scott quickly searched them, his hands shaking as he gathered what weapons and equipment he could find. A plasma rifle, a few spare power cells, and a holomap of the city. It wasn't much, but it would have to do. As he navigated the smoke-filled corridors, Scott's heart raced with a mixture of fear and determination. The holomap guided him through the labyrinthine fortress, but the sounds of the creature's rampage grew louder with each step. Suddenly, he came across a group of terrified Ocampan civilians huddled together in a small alcove. They were led by a young female named Vara, her eyes wide with fear, but also glinting with a spark of defiance. "What are you doing out here?" she hissed, her voice barely above a whisper. "You'll be killed!" Scott shook his head. "I can't leave you to face this alone. I'm here to help." Vara hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "The creature was last seen in the central plaza. If you're really going to fight it, that's where you need to go." She stepped forward, her chin held high. "I'll guide you there." Together they made their way through the city, the devastation becoming more apparent with each step. Buildings lay in ruins, their walls crumbled, and their windows shattered. Bodies littered the streets, the coppery scent of blood mingling with the acrid smoke. Scott felt a wave of despair wash over him, a sense of hopelessness that seemed to permeate the very air. Vara must have sensed his thoughts, for she spoke up, her voice tight with emotion. "This creature, it's not just killing us, it's destroying everything we are. We've always believed ourselves to be the most advanced, the most powerful species in the galaxy. But now—" She trailed off, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. As they reached the central plaza, Scott's heart nearly stopped at the scene before him. The creature, a massive, shadowy form with glowing red eyes and razor-sharp claws, was locked in combat with a dozen Ocampan warriors. Among them was Commander Rigel, her face a mask of grim determination as she fired her plasma rifle at the beast. But their weapons seemed to have little effect, the creature shrugging off the blasts as if they were nothing more than annoying insect bites. The warriors were being rapidly overwhelmed, their numbers dwindling with each passing second. Scott knew he had to act fast. Conventional weapons were useless against this monster, that much was clear. His eyes darted around the plaza, searching for anything that might give them an edge. And then he saw it, a large water tower looming over the battlefield like a silent sentinel. Scott's mind raced as he eyed the water tower, a desperate plan forming in his mind. He turned to Vara, his voice urgent. "I need you to lure that thing towards the tower. Keep its attention on you, no matter what." Vara's eyes widened, fear etched across her face, but she saw the determination in Scott's gaze and nodded. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to bring that tower down on top of it." Scott hefted his plasma rifle. "It's our only chance." As Vara darted out into the open, firing plasma blasts at the creature, Scott sprinted for the water tower. He scaled the metal rungs, his heart pounding in his chest. The creature's roars echoed through the plaza, mingling with the sound of Vara's rifle. Scott reached the top of the tower and took aim at the support struts. He fired, the plasma bolts searing through the metal. The struts groaned and buckled but held fast. Scott gritted his teeth and kept firing, pouring all his desperation and fear into each shot. Below, Vara danced and wove, barely staying ahead of the creature's slashing claws. The pavement cracked and shattered beneath its feet, its eyes glowing with malevolent fury. It lunged for Vara, its jaws snapping inches from her face. Scott fired one final shot, and the struts shattered. The tower let out a shriek of tortured metal and began to topple, directly towards the creature. Vara threw herself clear, just as the tower crashed down, engulfing the beast in a cascade of water and twisted metal. For a moment there was silence. Then a low groan emanated from the wreckage. Scott and Vara approached cautiously, plasma rifles at the ready. They peered into the tangle of metal, and their eyes widened in shock. The creature lay trapped beneath the tower, its body sparking and twitching. But it was no organic beast. It was a machine, a highly advanced android. Vara gasped, recognition dawning on her face. "I know this model," she whispered. "It was part of a secret government project years ago, but the project was abandoned when the android started displaying unstable, violent behavior." Commander Rigel pushed her way through the gathered warriors, her rifle aimed at the android's head. She turned to Scott, her expression unreadable. "You have our thanks for your assistance, human. But this is our responsibility now, our mistake to correct." Scott opened his mouth to argue, but Rigel silenced him with a look. She turned back to the android, her finger tightening on the trigger. Just as Rigel's finger tightened on the trigger, a haunting howl pierced the air. Everyone froze, the sound chilling them to the bone. The howl was followed by a series of barks and growls, echoing through the ruined plaza. Slowly, a large, shaggy form emerged from the shadows, limping towards the group. As it drew closer, Scott's eyes widened in recognition. "It's a German shepherd," he breathed, taking in the dog's bloodied fur and scarred body. "They're known for their loyalty and bravery." The dog, its tail wagging weakly, stumbled forward, collapsing at Scott's feet. Its breathing was labored, its eyes glazed with pain. Vara, her heart aching for the wounded creature, rushed to its side. She knelt down, gently running her hands over the dog's matted fur. As she tended to its wounds, something caught her eye. The dog's collar, nearly hidden beneath the blood and grime, bore a symbol that matched the android's serial number. Vara's breath caught in her throat as the realization hit her. "They're connected," she whispered, her voice trembling. "The dog and the android, it's been trying to stop the rampage." Commander Rigel, her finger still poised on the trigger, snapped her head towards Vara. "What are you talking about?" she demanded, her eyes narrowing. Scott, his mind racing to piece together the clues, stepped forward. "I think I understand," he said slowly. "The android and the dog, they were part of a secret Ocampan experiment, an attempt to create the perfect warrior by combining machine and beast." Rigel's eyes widened, her grip on the rifle faltering. "That's not possible," she whispered, but there was a flicker of doubt in her voice. "Something must have gone wrong," Scott continued, his gaze locked on the trapped android. "The programming became corrupted, turning the android into a mindless killing machine. But the dog—" He looked down at the wounded animal, its eyes meeting his. "It stayed loyal. It's been trying to protect your people from its partner's wrath." Silence fell over the plaza, broken only by the dog's labored breathing. Rigel, her face a mask of conflicting emotions, slowly lowered her weapon. She looked at the android, then at the dog, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Stand down," she ordered, her voice cracking. The warriors hesitated, then lowered their rifles, stepping back from the wreckage. Rigel turned to Scott, her expression unreadable. "The android will be deactivated and studied," she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. "We must ensure that such a tragedy never happens again." Her gaze softened as she looked at Vara, still cradling the injured dog. "As for the earth creature, it will be under your care, Vara. See that it is healed and treated with the respect it deserves." Vara nodded, tears streaming down her face. She gently lifted the dog into her arms, its tail thumping weakly against her chest. Scott, his mission complete, prepared to leave Ocampa Prime. But as he walked towards his ship, he couldn't shake the feeling that his work on this alien world was far from over. The Ocampans, their isolationist beliefs shaken by the day's events, watched him go with a newfound sense of curiosity and wonder. As Scott's ship blasted off into space, the Ocampan city receding behind him, Vara stood with the dog by her side. Its wounds had been cleaned and bandaged, and though it still bore the scars of its ordeal, there was a new strength in its stance. Together, they watched the stars, the dog's eyes reflecting the vast expanse of the galaxy. But behind the wonder, there was a haunted look, a reminder of the horrors it had witnessed and the bond that had been tested. For in the depths of space, nothing was quite as it seemed, and even the strongest of partnerships could be strained to the breaking point. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.